Alessandro from Chicago, Illinois, Sean Kindra from Winnetka, Illinois, Brendan Curley from Palos Hills, Illinois. You'll see all of them later on in this video. And lastly, myself, Nick Castelli. I'm from Highland Park, Illinois. We are all juniors at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and we're currently studying abroad together in Rome at the Gusto Lab International Institute of Food Systems and Sustainability. One of the classes we are currently enrolled in is a Food and Media course, which ties together the concepts of food sustainability and using social media as platforms to promote awareness for food sustainability. One of the main focal points of our class are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and how students studying abroad can work towards achieving and promoting them during and after their experience abroad. Today we will specifically focus on the Sustainable Development Goal number 17, which is partnerships for the goals. This goal emphasizes the importance of partnerships between governments and the private sector and civil society in working together to achieve goals related with sustainability. These partnerships are built upon shared values, vision, and goals that place people and the well-being of our planet at the center. Urgent action is needed to mobilize, redirect, and unlock the transformative power of trillions of dollars of private resources to deliver on sustainable development objectives. Long-term investments, including foreign direct investment, are needed in critical sectors, especially in developing countries that lack the financial resources to put in place these sustainable goals. These include sustainable energy, infrastructure, and transport, as well as information and communications technologies, in order for them to continue with the sustainable energy, infrastructure, and transports, as well as continue to promote sustainable goals.
Thank you, Nick Castelli, for introducing us. We know how hard that was. We'd like to start by offering some facts and figures we have learned about the goals. Per the United Nations website, official development assistance stood at $146.6 billion in 2017, which is a 0.6% decrease since 2016. 79% of imports from developing countries enter developed countries duty-free. The debt burden on developing countries remains stable at about 3% of export revenue. The number of internet users in Africa almost doubled in the past 4 years. 30% of the world's youth in Africa almost doubled in the past 4 years, but more than 4 billion people do not use the internet. And 90% of them are from the developing world. I think it's great that more than 75% of the imports from developing countries to developed enter duty-free because it allows the developing country the opportunity to get their products out there without getting hit with the taxes involved. This in turn makes it so that the country can export more of its goods and boost their economy.
I would like to add on to what Brendan said about the importance of improving and increasing trade between developing countries. This is very important because for a country to truly grow past the point of poverty, it is necessary for it to have its own productive economy. For the most efficient solution to achieving this goal is to not just throw other governments' money at the problem, but to create working legislation and partnerships that foster profitable trade agreements for that country. If a developing country is able to export goods free of taxes, then they are able to funnel their profits into the rest of their economy at a much more efficient and profitable rate. Once a country is able to export on a global level, they can then use that capital to reinvest into themselves and further improve their own economy, as well as directly benefit those who they trade with. With more countries competing at the global level, more resources are added to the world economy, and we can all benefit from this. This is why one of the Global Partnership's goals is to significantly increase the exports of developing countries, in particular with a view to doubling the least developed country's share of global exports by 2020. If this goal is achieved, every country stands to benefit from this through more efficient trade in regards to specialization and a stronger world economy. The first steps to achieving this goal starts with a stronger and more transparent global partnerships, with an emphasis on working together instead of a self-serving mindset.
In today's day and age, Internet use is at an all-time high. And we think of it as just second nature, using it for social media, random Google searches, or even looking for jobs, or any other various things. But in developing countries, that's a different story. 30% of the world's youth are digital natives and have been active online for at least 5 years. But more than 4 billion people in the world still don't use the internet, with 90% of them being in developing countries. As you can see, this is a huge problem. With stuff like today, and we're so high tech, having internet access is crucial. So in order for a country to become more developed in a first world country, it's necessary that they get the infrastructure for everyone to be able to access the internet.
With 90% of the developing world still not having access to internet, it's an immediate problem that requires global attention. The internet is useful for speeding up communication and education, as well as tons of other things. And with these countries not having access to this valuable tool, they're going to quickly be left behind the rest of the world that has access to it. And so that's something that we can focus our global attentions on.
Official development assistance stood at $146.6 billion in 2017. This represents a 0.6% decrease in real terms from 2016. In my opinion, this is a complete disaster. The UN right now clearly is not on its way to achieve its goal of having good partners to achieve its sustainable development goals. We've seen this a bunch, especially looking at the whole entire continent of Africa. So much billions of dollars of aid has been poured into Africa, and over the last 30 years, we really haven't seen that much progress. Many countries still have hunger, genocide, civil war, and all these issues, and it clearly shows that the UN is struggling to get the right partners to put money and resources in the right hands. I think we can go back and look at the Somalian Civil War in 1993, where the U.S. and the UN got involved, and it was a clear example of money and resources not getting into the right hands. Many of the resources and aid given, or that was intended to be given to the people, ended up with Somali warlords, which ended up having the U.S. to need military intervention. A lot of these small developing countries' governments are very corrupt and top-heavy, and the money never sees its way to the bottom. This is a big problem because the UN, in my opinion, is failing and they need to improve. Removing the overall amount of money given to these countries, to developing countries, by only 0.6% in 1 year is pretty bad, considering it's millions of dollars a year, or billions, a year. So something's got to change, and the UN needs to start becoming more efficient. Looking back at countries in the Industrial Revolution, it seemed like they changed overnight, and right now we're pouring billions into these countries, and they're moving at a snail's pace, so something must change. Continuing with what abroad students can do to change, I think one of the biggest and easiest impacts we can have is voting with our dollar. I think that there are many companies that exploit the poorly educated and poorly developing countries around the world, all these third world countries. So if we are aware of countries that, or companies that are exploiting these people and not using their products, then maybe we can start to see these people become less downtrodden and less abused. A good example of this is Nestle, who has a bunch of very famous products and well-known products around the world. However, many agree that they are having a bunch of problems with human rights issues around the world, whether it's in Canada or with water, or Africa with labor. And I think that a good way to help people is if people start to stop buying products with them, because they're a giant and they feed off consumer purchases. And once they lose the consumer, then if they fall, then maybe you can alleviate the stress on all these people who are being taken advantage of.
As study abroad students, we can all do something to make a change. First of all, you can try donating to any sort of causes that are helping developing countries that are struggling. You can go to embassies in your local city of those developing countries and see if there's anything that you can do to try to help, or maybe spread the word around to the world through social media to other people. You can write articles about this so that people are more aware of what's going on. You can also contact the university at home that you're from and see if there's anything they can do to donate and make a change.